What if someone stole your life? I mean everything. Your face, your memories, your family. And what if he was better at being you than you were? This is the 100% true story of Martin Guerre, a guy whose life was literally hijacked by an impostor. This scammer stepped into his shoes so perfectly that it led to the most insane trial ever, leaving his wife, Bertrande, with a crazy choice. Was she the victim of the world's greatest con, or was she in on the scam the entire time? This isn't just some boring history lesson. This is a real-life mystery about identity that is so wild, people are still arguing about it hundreds of years later. It makes you ask a terrifying question. How well do you actually know the people you love? All right, so picture this. It's the 1500s in a tiny village in France. There's no internet, no phones, no pictures. In this town, two teenagers, Martin Guerre and Bertrande de Rols, get into an arranged marriage to lock down their family's property. But from day one, their marriage was a complete disaster. For 8 straight years, they couldn't have a kid. In their world, that was a huge deal. The whole village was whispering that they were cursed. People told Bertrande to leave him, but she wouldn't do it. Finally, after they did a ritual to break the curse, they had a son named Sanxi. You'd think that would fix everything, right? Wrong. Martin was a difficult guy, and the pressure just kept building. Then, in 1548, he did something that blew up his whole life. He stole grain from his own diadi. The shame was so intense that he just ran. He completely vanished. He didn't say a word to his wife or his kid. He just walked away from his entire life. For Bertrande, this was a catastrophe. The law at the time meant she was trapped. She couldn't get remarried. She was stuck raising their son all by herself, with no idea where her husband was, or if he was even alive. The years just dragged on. Everyone in the village just assumed Martin Guerre was dead. But 8 years later, the impossible happened. In 1556, a man walks into the village, and everyone's jaw hits the floor. He looked exactly like Martin Guerre. He walked like him, and he told everyone he was him. Instantly, he's surrounded. He calls Martin's sisters and his uncle by name, sharing inside jokes that only the real Martin could ever know. The guy knew every single detail of his old life. It was unbelievable. His family was so happy they welcomed him back instantly. But the only opinion that really mattered was his wife's, Bertrande. And at first, she was suspicious. 8 years is a long time, and this guy seemed different. He was way more charming and nicer than the husband she remembered. And yet, he knew things. Secret things. He reminded her of private moments only the two of them could have known. Her doubt started to melt away. After a few days, Bertrande de Rols announced to the entire village that this was her husband. And with that, nobody doubted him. The returned Martin Guerre slid back into his old life like he never even left. He reconnected with his son, Sanxi, and he and Bertrande started their marriage over. And here's the crazy part. Their life was better than ever. This new Martin was an amazing husband and father. They even had another kid, a daughter named Bernard. For 3 years, this guy lived as Martin Guerre, and he was crushing it. The deception was perfect, but a massive fight was about to tear it all apart. The first person who started getting suspicious was the most powerful guy in the family, Martin's uncle Pierre. Pierre had been in charge of the family's money while Martin was gone. At first, he believed the guy too. But then, the new Martin tried to sell off a piece of the family's land. For Pierre, this was a huge red flag. It felt greedy, and it threatened the family's entire future. Pierre went from suspicious to 100% certain this guy was a fake. He started asking questions in other villages, and the rumors started flying. A soldier passed through and said the guy was a fraud, claiming the real Martin Guerre had lost a leg in a war. Then another guy from a nearby town swore he recognized the impostor as a man named Arnaud du Tilh, a peasant with a reputation for being a scammer. Pierre was convinced he was dealing with a phony. He confronted the new Martin, and things got ugly. At one point, Pierre and his sons-in-law literally attacked the man, and Bertrande had to jump in the middle of it to save her husband. So Pierre put all the pressure on Bertrande to end it. And this is where the story gets super mysterious. What was Bertrande thinking? Was she tricked by this master-level imposter? Or was she playing along the whole time because she had traded her old, mean husband for a newer, better model? Historians have been fighting about this for centuries. This new guy was a better husband, so maybe she was just happier and wanted it to be true. Whatever she was thinking, the pressure from Pierre was just too much. Her whole life depended on the family's support. Finally, she caved. In 1559, she filed a formal lawsuit against the man she'd lived with for 3 years, accusing him of being an impostor. And with that, the stage was set for one of the craziest legal battles in human history. This case went to trial, and the evidence was so insane, it would confuse everyone. Before we get to the wild trial and the shocking ending, if you think this story is crazy, smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out when we drop the most unbelievable stories from history. The trial kicked off in 1560, and it was the biggest show in town. The question was simple: is this man Martin Guerre, or the impostor Arnaud du Tilh? But getting an answer was almost impossible. Over 150 witnesses were called to testify, and it was complete chaos. Dozens of people, including Martin's own 4 sisters, swore that this was 100% Martin Guerre. They pointed to his face, his memories. They were totally convinced. But just as many people swore he was a fake. They claimed he was Arnaud du Tilh, a known liar. Even the physical evidence was a mess. Some said he had the right scars. Others said he was the wrong height, had a different nose, and even wore the wrong shoe size. A shoemaker testified that his feet were completely wrong for Martin's old shoes. And through it all, the accused man was a superstar. He was confident, he was smart, and he knew every detail of Martin's life. He was so good that he turned the whole courtroom against his uncle Pierre, claiming this was all a greedy plot to steal his inheritance. He was so confident that he challenged Bertrande in the middle of the court. "Swear on the Bible that I'm not your husband, and I'll accept the death penalty." She said nothing. The judges were completely lost. The evidence was 50-50. They found the man guilty, but it was such a weak case that he immediately appealed. He took the case to a higher court. In front of a famous judge, the defendant was more brilliant than ever. He argued so well that the new judges started to believe him. It looked like he was about to win. He was about to be declared the real Martin Guerre forever. The court was seconds from delivering the final verdict. And then, the courtroom door swung open. A man on a wooden leg hobbled in. He was covered in battle scars. As he walked into the room, a massive shockwave hit the crowd. Martin's sisters screamed. His uncle Pierre was speechless, because standing right there in front of them, back from the war where he'd lost his leg, was the real Martin Guerre. The game was over. The court put both men in front of the family. One by one, his sisters, his uncle, and finally his wife Bertrande, all pointed to the man with the wooden leg and said he was the real Martin. Faced with the truth, the impostor, Arnaud du Tilh, finally confessed to everything. The truth was insane. Arnaud du Tilh was a genius opportunist. Years ago, some guys had mistaken him for Martin Guerre. When he realized the real Martin was missing, he saw the ultimate opportunity. He spent weeks interviewing those guys, learning every last detail about Martin's life before marching into Artegat to steal it. In his confession, he begged for forgiveness from everyone, especially Bertrande. He swore until the very end that she had no idea and was completely innocent. On September 16th, 1560, Arnaud du Tilh was sentenced to death and publicly executed in front of the Guerre house. So what happened to the real Martin and Bertrande? You'd think it would be a happy reunion, right? Wrong. Martin was cold and never forgave her. When Bertrande begged him to forgive her, he publicly shamed her, saying that of all people she should have known it wasn't him. The court officially ruled she was an innocent victim, so she wasn't punished. They lived together for the rest of their lives, but you can imagine how awful and silent their house must have been. This story leaves us with one massive question we can never answer. Was Bertrande de Rols a victim or an accomplice? Did she knowingly let a stranger into her life because he was a much better husband than the guy who abandoned her? Or was she really fooled by the greatest impostor of all time? In a time with no photos or DNA, your identity was just based on what people remembered. The story of Martin Guerre shows how easy it is to break that. It's proof that sometimes the craziest stories are the ones that actually happened. What do you think? I want to know your theory in the comments right now. Was Bertrande in on the scam, or was she an innocent victim? And for more of the most insane stories from history, don't forget to like this video and subscribe. Thanks for watching.